Today's video is sponsored by nobility.co.uk.
Welcome to Noble Titles. Established in 1996, we are experts in legal titles. Most people don't realize that you can buy legal titles from the UK and other European countries. In the UK, there are two types of titles. Firstly, peerages that are granted by the Queen. These cannot be sold. The other is manorial feudal titles that were once based on land ownership. These are legal to sell. We only sell such legal titles that conform with the UK law. All our titles are insured for £250,000, equal to $300,000 per title. This guarantees we only sell genuine, inheritable real titles. Companies selling titles without insurance are 99% fake titles. For titles available for sale, click the links here on the left. We look forward to assisting you in acquiring a proper legal title for you and your family to enjoy. You only buy a title once, so buy insured titles from an established company with decades of experience. Noble Titles. Thank you for visiting.
Saudi Arabia has one of the highest death penalty rates in the world. It carried out one of its largest mass executions in January 2016, when 47 people were put to death, including prominent Shia leader Nimr al-Nimr. The executed prisoners were accused of terrorism and having extremist ideology. Since Prince Mohammed bin Salman first emerged onto the kingdom's political scene in 2015, he has overseen an intensified crackdown on dissent. He began his political career as defense minister and was elevated to crown prince in 2017. In recent years, the crown prince has ordered the rounding up of scores of activists, high-profile clerics, analysts, businessmen and princes, as well as women's rights defenders who were allegedly tortured, and whom authorities accuse of suspicious contact with foreign entities. Mass execution is a chilling demonstration of the Saudi Arabian authorities' callous disregard for human life. It is also yet another gruesome indication of how the death penalty is being used as a political tool to crush dissent from within the country's Shia minority. The death penalty was implemented on a number of criminals for adopting extremist terrorist ideologies and forming terrorist cells to corrupt and disrupt security, as well as spreading chaos and provoking sectarian strife. Saudi Arabia's government announced the mass execution of 37 men on April 23, 2019 in various parts of the country. At least 33 of the 37 were from the country's minority Shia community, and had been convicted following unfair trials for various alleged crimes, including protest-related offenses, espionage, and terrorism. The mass execution was the largest since January 2016, when Saudi Arabia executed 47 men for terrorism offenses. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has long ago adopted a zero-tolerance policy towards terrorists who spill the blood of the innocent, threaten the national security of the kingdom and distort our great faith. The convicted criminals who were executed today had their day in court and were found guilty of very serious crimes. Saudi authorities will inevitably characterize those executed as terrorists and dangerous criminals. But the reality is that Saudi courts are largely devoid of any due process, and many of those executed were condemned based solely on confessions they credibly say were coerced. On the 23rd of April 2019, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia carried out a mass execution of 37 imprisoned civilians who had been convicted, 21 on the basis of confessions allegedly obtained under coercion and torture, for terrorism-related allegations in 6 provinces in the country. 14 of the people executed had been convicted in relation to their participation in the 2011 to 2012 Saudi Arabian protests in Qatif, mostly on the basis of torture-induced confessions. The executions were carried out by beheading, and 2 of the bodies were left on public display. The bodies of 2 of the executed men were publicly displayed on a pole for several hours as a warning to others. According to Saudi Arabia's Interior Ministry, the convicts were all Saudi nationals. 32 of those executed belonged to the country's Shia minority. The executions were conducted in the capital Riyadh, the Muslim holy cities of Mecca and Medina, the central province of Al-Qasim, Shia-populated eastern province, and the southern province of Asr. 14 of the men who were among the defendants in the Qatif 24 case were from that Shia majority area. The specialized criminal court convicted them on protest-related crimes, and some faced charges of violence including targeting police patrols or police stations with guns and Molotov cocktails. Saudi media have described the 24 men as members of a terrorism cell that carried out over 50 armed attacks, targeting security forces that killed an unspecified number of them and injured dozens. The court convicted nearly all defendants based on confessions they later repudiated in court, saying the authorities had tortured them. The court sentenced 14 of the defendants to death in June 2016, and an appeals court upheld the verdict in May 2017. The court sentenced 9 others to prison terms of between 3 and 15 years and exonerated 1 defendant. 11 of the executed men were part of the Iran spy case, which involved 32 defendants. They were accused of offenses constituting high treason, including meeting with Iranian intelligence agents and passing them confidential military information and background information on Shia communities in Mecca, Medina, and Saudi Arabia's eastern province. Authorities detained 17 people on March 16, 2013, 14 others later in 2013, and 1 in 2014, but did not bring them to trial until early 2016. In addition to espionage, prosecutors in the Iran spy case also brought charges that do not represent recognizable crimes, including supporting demonstrations, distorting the reputation of the kingdom, and attempting to spread the Shia confession in Saudi Arabia. Mohammed Abd al-Ghanitiyah, who was among the 37 men executed, faced these charges as well as planning with an Iranian intelligence element to establish a company to spread Shia activities in eastern province. Specialized criminal court handed down between 2013 and 2016 against men and children accused of protest-related crimes following popular demonstrations by members of the Shia minority in 2011 and 2012 in eastern province towns. In nearly all these judgments, defendants had retracted their confessions, saying they were coerced in circumstances that in some cases amounted to torture, including beatings and prolonged solitary confinement. The court rejected all torture allegations without investigating the claims. It ignored defendants' requests for video footage from the prison that they said would show them being tortured, and to summon interrogators as witnesses to describe how the confessions were obtained. International standards, including the Arab Charter on Human Rights, ratified by Saudi Arabia, require countries that retain the death penalty to use it only for the most serious crimes, and in exceptional circumstances, following a judgment by a competent court. Saudi Arabia has one of the highest execution rates in the world and applies the death penalty to a range of offenses that do not constitute most serious crimes, including drug offenses. Instead of stepping up executions at an alarming rate in the name of countering terrorism, Saudi Arabia's must halt this bloody execution spree immediately and establish an official moratorium on executions as a first step towards abolishing the death penalty completely. Ali Al-Nimr Dawood al-Marhoon and Abdullah al-Zair, from the Shia minority and who were below the age of 18 at the time of the crime, remain on death row and at imminent risk of execution. According to Amnesty International, many of the families of Shia Muslims executed in the mass execution had not been informed in advance, and were shocked to learn of the news. Among the executions was that of a young man who was convicted of a crime that took place while he was under the age of 18, Abdul Karim al-Hawaii, a young Shia man who was arrested at the age of 16 and convicted of offenses related to his involvement in anti-government protests. Some sources says, at least 3 of those killed were minors at the time of their sentencing, in violation of international law that prohibits the use of the death penalty against anyone under the age of 18. Thank you for watching Death Row.